Welcome to another edition of the Campus Conversation. Today's topic is the COVID Community Dashboard and the science behind it. I'm joined today by a very distinguished panel, Provost Ihab Abdulrahman, Dr. Hassan Azazi, Distinguished University Professor and Chair of the Chemistry Department, who many of us know has tirelessly been answering questions regarding the campus coronavirus response and the inner workings of the dashboard. Vice President for Management and Operations, Shireen Shakir, Associate Vice President for Digital Transformation, Chief Strategy and Knowledge Officer, Iman Magahid, and Director of the New Cairo Clinic, Dr. Bassem Safin. Today is going to be special for the campus conversation, as we will have a number of presentations reflecting on the community response to COVID-19, the dashboard, and followed by that, we will be taking your questions. But first, let me start by asking Provost Ihab if he can update us on the status of our university and where we stand in our efforts to keep the campus safe and secure. Provost?
Dr. Firas, thank you so much for your introduction, and thank you for moderating the session today. And I would like to start by welcoming all the audience to the campus conversation. As Dr. Firas mentioned, this is a very important campus conversation to go over the dashboard and actually discuss the dashboard with our community. I would like to start by thanking all of our faculty and staff for making it happen for our students and to continue and end the semester face-to-face. This is the first semester after COVID started to be face-to-face, and so far we're doing a great job and continuing to be face-to-face. Classes are going really well. The reports that are collecting about the classes and the feedback that we got from the faculty and students, it says that the things are going well inside the classroom. We're still actually looking at those reports in order to analyze them, to take the lesson learned from this semester to the next semesters. Of course, we are committed to remaining face-to-face, at the same time to continue ensuring that all of our community members are safe and sound. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that we deliver our educational mission to our students while making sure that every member of the community is safe. And I would like to take that chance to also thank everyone who have worked very hard on opening the campus and maintaining the campus open. And that, by all means, everyone on the scientific committee, on the task force to reopen the campus. Every faculty and staff member, security, clinic, the safety and health, communication, everyone has played a role in this university to make sure that we fulfill our promises to our students and to deliver to them the highest quality of education. The dashboard is one of the many examples of how our response have evolved and continue to develop over the time. As we have learned that, and the word, the understanding around the virus has grown. There is a new variant, and we have to take this into consideration, or also learn how to deal with it. And I want to also mention that our winter session, the registration has already started, and so far there is a great strong interest from our students on the courses in the winter session, and the winter session will also be face-to-face. We have received feedback from, as I mentioned earlier, feedback from students and faculty on the fall 2021. Currently, the team is analyzing that feedback, and they will take the lesson learned into the next semester, and we will share also that feedback with the community very soon. And I would like to invite every member of the community to continue sending them their recommendation, their comments. This is how we improve our systems. And today is an example of that. And I don't want to take longer, and so we can allow our audience to ask questions about the dashboard. Dr. Firas, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Provost Ihab. There certainly is a very different vibe on campus this semester compared to last semester, and I've seen a lot of enterprising work from some of our students and a lot of our faculty. The list of people to thank is very, very long. I will pass the mic on to Vice President Shireen. She has prepared a very informative presentation for us. Vice President Shireen.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm thinking now that we're right before Christmas and we've now nearly completed the full semester face-to-face without, yes, with some increasing numbers at times, but definitely with things under control in the middle of the pandemic is, I think, reason enough for celebration. And that, as the provost was just saying, that a lot of teams have worked very hard so that we can get through this semester in a way where there were no big outbreaks on campus, and that things are processes as difficult as they are, but they are going and they are going quite well. So with that, I'm going to be talking a few minutes presenting. We've all jointly prepared this presentation. I'll be starting with a little bit of background of how the dashboard evolved in the last now more than a year and a half, the history of it, how it transitioned, and how it developed over the months. Then I'm going to talk about what the triggers were previously, the last year, in the hybrid year, and how they've also developed. And definitely with the help of the scientific committee, they played an instrumental role in getting to where the dashboard is today. After that, I'll pass to AVP Iman to take us through the technical architecture and how the dashboard works on the basis of the numbers, etc., the challenges technically speaking, and the steps taken to overcome these challenges. So with that, I will start the presentation. So just going back a bit of background, February 2020 was when everything started to happen. Within the first few months, we didn't have any measure to indicate how things are going within campus. And the only data we started measuring those few months was the number of cases. And if you can recall back then, the number of cases were not confirmed via PCR because it was very difficult to get testing back then. There was no testing on campus. The testing units on campus opened in that summer of August was the precise time. And so it was very difficult. We were sending people to the Ain Shams hospital to get tested, and it was very problematic. So at that time, getting data was already very, very difficult. By June, we had developed the version 2 of what the dashboard was, and I will remind everybody of how it looked. And this was when we first started capturing the 7-day rolling average, and that was the main number that we were looking at. And the basis of that number was looking at what other peer institutions like us were doing, which we did I don't want to say on a broad basis, but we spent a bit of time researching. But it was also, we wanted to launch something quickly so that it would give us a better handle or grip on what the situation on campus was. And that was the basis of what the dashboard looks like today. The 7-day rolling average was the main measure that we were looking at in version 2 of the dashboard. In the last few months, thankfully, Dr. Azzezi and the committee, the scientific committee, looked a little bit deeper, and the basis of the version 3 of the dashboard was launched last month. And that now the key measure for us is no longer the 7-day rolling average, but the 14-day rolling average, which is a more accurate way of looking at things. And that is actually based on the recommendations of Minnesota Department of Health recommendations for higher ed and specific. We also have other important measures in the dashboard today, which is basically the percent of the confirmed cases on campus in relation to the campus population. That gives us a percent related to how much we are on campus. But that was a measure that last year did not play a critical role, but now this year we do look at it very, very actively. If you all recall, that was even the colors were different, even the look and feel was different. We only had basically a confirmed cases total count, and that was how we were looking at the numbers back then. A few months later, by June, we had developed what was the basis of the, let's say, the true dashboard, or the AC COVID-19 dashboard. And I'll let Iman in a few minutes talk about that this dashboard actually went through a ranking process, and we took an actual rating on the dashboard, and there was some improvements based on that ranking that is now integrated into the dashboard, and that also evolved into our version 3, which is now what we are looking at a daily basis. And the main differences here is the incorporation of the 14. If you look at the middle section, which has the 14-day rolling average, and the graphs down on the campus presence also has a 14-day component in it. So that is the key difference of the addition. I don't want to say the difference because the rest remained as is, which is the 7-day, and we augmented to it the 14 days. Last year, and again, when we were in hybrid operations, we looked at a few indicators to help us go about decisions of when to move to hybrid, when to open up the campus, and when to fully close, etc. And our two measures on the national level were fatalities and cases, and we had, and that number was basically according to also that was guided by the national overall conditions. And after Egypt exceeded the 1,000 new cases a day, that was when the government started indicating that institutions go online, etc. So that was also it was not as scientific as we are today, based on the Minnesota Health Department guidance, but this was more or less guided by how things were happening at the country at large, and it was above 1,000 was our internal indicator to look at, okay, nationwide we're going worse. And the mortality rate, when it exceeded 100 cases per day, was also a strong indicator of how things were going nationwide. Within AUC, we were looking at a trend of the 7-day rolling average, and it was a trend. It was by how much it was going up. And as we were coming to the 15 figure, things nationally were not going well, and that was where we switched back online. And the hospital cases and ICU, specifically ICU cases, would be exceeding the number of 2. That was the internal measure that we were using throughout the period when we were in hybrid operation. I will let Dr. Hassan Azizi talk about this one a little bit more in depth when we come to his part in the presentation, but that changed into a multi-stage approach where we look at a combination of things, not just one measure like the 7-day or the 14-day rolling average, but it combines a number of things, not just the 14 rolling average number, but also it combines that with the percent of cases on campus. And that is where it moves from one stage, from the green, above an 8 number, then we move to the yellow, above a 21 cases a day, we will move to orange. And if that stays 2 weeks or more, then we'll be in red, which is time to switch to online. And again, any questions, we'll go back into that within Dr. Hassan's piece of the presentation. With that, I will move to Iman to explain a bit more on how technically the dashboard actually works.
Welcome aboard, everyone, and thank you for joining us. The dashboard itself it follows any business intelligence platform, so it has multiple tiers. The intent of sharing this with you is to explain to every constituency or every stakeholder actually where this data comes from, how their daily operations actually impact data and where it ends up being. So the main source of data comes from our clinic system, which is both our self-check, vaccine, and all of those systems. That's the bulk of where the data comes in. And then some of the data comes in from manual entry, things about, for instance, Egypt's national numbers, as well as people on campus. This comes manually entered from the security system or management of operations. And then the fourth piece of information comes from our big data, which is our Wi-Fi system to complement manual contact tracing. All of this goes into one big bundle, some sort of landing page or what we call a data lake. Then it's transformed into KPIs. So instead of transactions, you would have something like a 7-day rolling average or the average of whatever. So all the KPIs actually come from the transactional systems and they become these KPIs. And ultimately, the dashboard comes out of this. So having looked at this, you can see the number of source systems. Each source system has its different owners, different way of operation. You see the different layers that this data goes through, and this reflects the level of complexity. I'm going to go through the challenges, but just one small thing before I move on to that. Recently, over the past month, there were quite a few number of incidents that we had quality issues. So that step at the middle with the thumbs up and the green, we've instilled a quality and manual human being that goes in every day, checks the dashboard, makes sure that there isn't anything fatally incorrect, because there are so many points of failure that can happen, whether data entry, whether any one of these systems, and then it's released on a daily basis. So we haven't compromised the fact that it's delivered on a daily basis with actual numbers, but then again, we've instilled this quality check to make sure that numbers reflect the reality. All right, just some challenges to put things in perspective. As you see, we are dealing with multiple sources, and we've tried to do our very best. At the very beginning of this process, and before launching the first dashboard on the website, we asked, there was a rating agency at the time to rate our dashboard. They gave us a B+, and they gave us recommendations. Among the recommendations, for instance, was including national numbers, because that would give any reader the bigger picture of what is happening in the country, and then where do we stand with respect to that. So we added that, and it was rated, and we received very, very positive feedback. And since then, we've tried to maintain this balance of keeping it stable, but then again, whenever there's a new KPI that people are asking for or interested in, we add it, we don't remove it. So people who are tracking can continue to track whatever they want. But for instance, with the scientific task force, they did a remarkable job. They came up with a scientific way to measure, which is the 14-day rolling average. We added it, we did not remove it. So the first challenge is the multiple data sources, different layers, different owners, and of course, a number of potential points of failure, which is present in any possible technology. The second thing is the direct rendering. I mean, this is a live dashboard that's happening on the fly. Of course, normally when we're reporting something official, we take it offline, we do a quality check. We didn't want to do this way because we wanted the information to be current for stakeholders to actually know what's happening, sort of like as close as real time as possible. Something else, the changing situation is constantly changing. We are facing needs every day that are changing, KPIs are changing, and we have had to adapt to this very fast. Everyone's very sensitive to the dashboard updates, understandably so. But then again, we've maintained this extreme agility in the dashboard and the underlying systems beyond what anyone can probably imagine. And the last is we went out above and beyond. We started to look, now that we've been in COVID or in this pandemic for quite some time. We took the time to research the market and see if there are ready-made solutions that can help us and that can actually fill this gap and to fulfill our needs. And the assumption was that we would find something. But unfortunately, even though we did find, none of them actually even met, I think, 2/3 of what we are currently providing. And this is only the start, and more is coming. So what are the actions that have been taken? Initially, all the dashboard was benchmarked before we launched, and we continue to do so. Continuous quality checks was the case, but now we're even taking the added benefit of instilling this manual quality check. We include always at the bottom, there's a section that talks about definitions, and whenever there's any disruption or something that happens that we want to inform the community, we include it there for ultimate transparency as best as we possibly can. Of course, we continue to balance between updates, such as those requested by the scientific task force and the original dashboard. On the systems level, I just wanted to bring this just to have people aware of what's happening behind the scenes. We've been leveraging all technologies as much as possible. COVID has changed the world. Systems have not been catching up. We've been developing these systems on a piecemeal, depending on the need at the time. We came up with Wi-Fi contact tracing as a complementary tool before zero cost, before anyone started to really invest in this type of technology. So all I'm saying is we're trying to do the best that we can, but the matter of the situation is that things are changing and that we keep to adapt. And we'll continue to adapt, and there's more coming your way in terms of classroom. Whenever there's a pain problem, we do our best to deliver as fast as possible. That's it. Thank you.
Dr. Hassan?
Thank you, Iman. Just before we go to Dr. Hassan and his very informative insights on what the scientific committee has been doing, I just would like to make a quick announcement. We had a very brief glitch when at the very beginning of the campus conversation today. The streaming link did not work for the first few minutes. It's up and running now and has been since then. So for those who are joining us, the attendees, I wanted to let you know that we are aware of this. We fixed it. We apologize for the glitch. The full recording of the session will be available for anyone who missed the first few minutes. So please let us know if you would like access to that. Thank you. And Dr. Hassan, we are eagerly awaiting your input. So I give the floor.
Thanks very much, Dr. Faraz, for your introduction. I will share my slides. Can you see my slides? Can you see my slides and hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So just to complement the presentation by VP Shri Chakir and VP Iman Mujahid, I will present on behalf of the Scientific Advisory Committee of COVID-19 the current status of COVID-19, as well as maybe a focus on Omicron, the new variant of COVID-19. So before I start, I would like just to remind ourselves on how can we might catch SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. This can be done via two ways. Number one, either directly from an infected person, because the virus is transmitted via airborne transmission. And this may happen most likely in crowded places, close contact settings, as well as confined and enclosed places. The second way of catching the virus is from contaminated surfaces. And this may include cardboard surfaces, plastic and stainless and so on, because the virus can linger in the air for 3 hours, in the cardboard for 24 hours, on copper surface for 4 hours, and then on plastic and stainless steel surfaces between 2 and 3 days. And that's why it's important to disinfect your hand frequently to prevent infection by COVID-19. I would just like to also remind ourselves that COVID-19, similar to other viruses, once they get inside a human cell or any cell, they start to replicate. This is what they do 24/7. And during this replication, they may generate not exact copy of the original virus, but a slightly modified or even more dramatically modified version of the original virus. And this is what we call variants. And generation of variants are usually the viral tricks to increase transmission, because these variants may have enhanced ability to enter body cells, so they can enter and infect body cells more efficiently. They can survive longer in air. They can replicate more, and then in this case, patients can cough out more viruses and increase the chances of viral transmission. And they also help to change the disease stage in which infection spreads to others. And if we want to talk about variants, we need to come to a little bit technical issue, which is what do we mean by what are the different types of variants? So we have variant of interest, and this when a special strain of the virus is found in sample. This is called variant of interest. And then we have also variant of concern, or VOC. This is more serious. This is when the virus travels faster, or kills more, or evades treatment. And then we have the highest level of variants, are the most dangerous one, which are variant of high consequences. And these are viral strain where they can affect more patient and evades treatment. So in this case, we start with a variant of concern, and then a variant of concern may be a variant of interest, and then the variant of interest may be converted to variant of concern. If the variant of interest, so it becomes variant of concern if it fulfills any of the following criteria: more transmission, increased severity of illness, reduce neutralization by antibodies generated by immunization or by the immune system, reduce efficacy of drugs and treatment, and finally, reduce efficiency of vaccines or vaccine escape ability. According to this, we had 4 variants of concern of COVID-19, and these were labeled alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. Just to give you an indication of the faster transmission by the new variants of concern, this will include the alpha variant. So if you look at the original virus, which was detected in Wuhan virus in Wuhan province in China, it has a transmission rho factor between 2.4 to 2.6. Alpha variant, on the other hand, can infect one single patient can infect between 4 to 5. Delta variant, which is more severe and more dangerous, a single patient or a single infected person can infect between 5 and 8. So if you look at, if we have a single patient infected with COVID-19, the original variant, it can infect, he or she can infect between 15 to 40%. But if we have a patient infected with the Delta variant, which is a variant of concern, this single patient can infect 259 other people. If you compare this to, for example, to Spanish flu, influenza, a single patient can infect around seven people. So this is how the COVID-19 variant of concern and variant of interest are named. They are named using green alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and so on. Right now, at this moment, we have 5 variants of concern, which are dangerous one: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and then Omicron, which is the most recent. But at the same time, we have 8 variants of interest. And these are being monitored, and if they fulfill any of the criteria, they will be switched to variant of concern. This is the status as of today: 5 variant of concern and 8 variant of interest. If we would like to get an idea about Omicron, you can see that Omicron has 32 mutation in the S protein of the virus. And this is really attracting a great deal of attention. And why? Because the S protein, this is the S protein, and these are the around 30 mutations detected in the Omicron variant of COVID-19, and these are their locations. Just to understand why the S protein of COVID-19 is an important protein, because this is the knob on the surface of the virus that binds to receptors on our human cells. And this is how the virus gets inside our cells. And that's why the majority of vaccines were generated against the spike protein. So the body can generate antibodies to bind to the spike protein and prevent the virus ability to enter human cells and replicate. On the other hand, the antigen COVID-19 tests were also are based on detection of S protein. And that's why there is a great deal of concern about Omicron, because now its S protein has many mutations, has many novel properties. And this may render current vaccine ineffective and being effective against Omicron. Also, it may impact some of the antigen tests. So some of the vaccine essentially most of the vaccine will lead to the generation of the S protein in the body. The body will make antibodies, and these antibodies will be able to bind to the S protein and prevent the virus ability of entering human cells. So according to the WHO, so now to get to the most recent and most official report of WHO, the World Health Organization, with regard to Omicron. Number 1, transmissibility. WHO says that it is not clear whether Omicron is more transmissible as compared to other variants of concern, including the Delta variant. Severity of disease. Also, there is no strong evidence as of this month, of today, to indicate that Omicron causes more severe disease compared to other variants, including the Delta variant. The high rates of transmission observed or documented in South Africa, where Omicron originated, may be due to increasing overall numbers of people becoming infected, and this is maybe due to low rollout of vaccination rather than infection by Omicron variant. It should be emphasized that all variants of COVID-19, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and Omicron, can cause severe death or severe disease or death, in particular in the most vulnerable population. And this is why we emphasize that prevention of transmission is key to fight and prevent transmission of all variants of COVID-19. How about the effectiveness of prior COVID-19 infection? So patients who have been infected by other variants of COVID-19, the evidence suggests that they may be also at increased risk of reinfection with Omicron. So people who have been infected before with other variant of concern from COVID-19 may still may be also infected by the new variant, which is Omicron. Effectiveness of vaccine. Current vaccines remain effective against severe disease and death. Effectiveness of current diagnostic tests. The PCR test are still effective in detection of all variants of COVID-19, including Omicron. With regard to rapid antigen tests, this is under investigation whether or not the Omicron variant of COVID-19, whether or not it will be or maybe not be detected with the current antigen tests, which are based on the detection of the S protein, in which there are around 30 mutations in the Omicron variant. How about effectiveness of current treatment? Current management for patients with COVID-19 is based mainly on the use of corticosteroids and interleukin-6 receptor blockers. These two treatments are still effective for managing patients with severe COVID-19 with all variants. This is the current statistics as of today from the Johns Hopkins University COVID-19 dashboard. Today, we have total cases reported worldwide of around 267 million, total death of 5.2 million cases, and over 8 billion vaccine doses have been administered to the population globally. With regard to Egypt, this is the current status as of today. You can see that we are like any other country in the world. We are in the fourth wave of the infection. Numbers are start to either level or to decrease a little bit. Also, number of deaths reported over the past several days have started to decline. I just want to also emphasize that the reported cases or the reported deaths due to COVID-19 do not represent a true level of transmission. And this is why, because of several factors. Number one, substantial proportion of infected people are asymptomatic. They don't show symptoms, and that's why they never get tested. Patients have mild symptoms and fail to present to healthcare facilities. Neglected segment of population are less likely to access testing. Testing capacity may be limited in many countries or restricted to severe cases and priority groups, and I think this is what's happening in Egypt. Cost of testing and availability of testing platforms may limit testing. Misdiagnosis due to questionable accuracy of test result and the time frame of testing may lead to false negative results. And finally, delays in reporting results and deaths. Right now, we are witnessing, I was in Germany actually last week and just arrived, and there was a huge spike in the number of new cases per day, exceeded 55,000 per day. And there are reasons for the surge of transmission in Europe and elsewhere, and this due to the low or lagging vaccine rollout, circulation of the new variants, which have a higher transmission, especially the Delta variant, as well as Omicron. Colder temperature will push activities indoors, and indoors we have a higher rate of infection and transmission. Waning immunity, especially from early COVID-19 inoculation. We understand now that the immunity after 6 months of vaccination will start to drop, and this is why there is a worldwide recommendation to have a third dose. Actually, all European countries and the US now they are administering a third dose or a booster, third dose of vaccination to boost the immunity against COVID-19. And finally, fatigue and complacency with regard to protective measures. How can we protect ourselves and others against COVID-19 transmission, regardless of the variant? Regardless of talking about alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and Omicron, the things are the same. Number one, we need vaccination. Number two, face mask, maintain physical distance, ventilate indoor spaces, keep good hygiene, because as we mentioned, you may catch the virus from surfaces. Disinfect and clean your hands frequently. Self-isolate if you develop symptoms. If we follow this, we are in good shape, because again, prevention of transmission is key. Don't worry about the variant. Don't be scared by this. follow these guidelines, and inshallah we will all be safe. So this is very important. The poster that's now in UC, developed by UC and also used by UC. So you can see that face mask plus social distance will make the chances of transmission of the virus very low. No face mask and no social distance, the chances of transmission from an asymptomatic carrier of the virus to uninfected person will be very high. So please keep this in mind. Face mask and social distance. Again, look at this. One person with no action, no measures to prevent or reduce transmission. One person may result after 30 days of infecting 400 people. If we have 50% only reduction of exposure by following some of the guidelines shown in the previous slide, one person will only infect 15 cases in 30 days. This is a huge difference. If we can increase the guidelines to prevent transmission, and can we reduce exposure by 75%, one person after 30 days can only infect 2.5 other person. So this will show the importance of guidelines to prevent transmission. Again, as our colleagues mentioned in the previous presentation, we have adopted the Minnesota Health Department recommendation for institutes of higher education. These are the specific recommendations for higher education institutes, four-stage approach versus the single cutoff that we used before, specific cutoffs. It identifies level of transmission and proposes intervention measures. It is a comprehensive approach. It looks at new cases on campus, other internal metrics, for example, increase absenteeism among faculty and staff, and so on. It looks at campus resources with regard to testing, quarantine, isolation room, contact tracing, and so on, as well as the country specific or transmission level. At the end of my presentation, I would like to answer some of the key questions that were brought to my attention in this slide, and actually I just have one more slide and be done. The first question is why the scientific committee recommended a shift from 7-day rolling average to 4-day rolling average instead of the 7-day. Number one, because this was part of the recommendation of Minnesota Department of Health for Institute of Higher Education to use a 14-day rolling average. Number two, 14-day rolling average is similar to the 7-day rolling average. It is calculated the same way. We count how many new cases over 14-day window, moving window, or 7-day moving window, and then divided by number of days, divide by 14 for 14-day, or divide by 7 for 7-day rolling average. So the same thing. But this window, the 14-day rolling average, will give you a broader window, more comprehensive look at the level of transmission over campus and campus versus the limited or narrower 7-day window. Second question, how does the dashboard inform the key stage triggers that the committee recommended? The dashboard is super important. Why? Because they show us on daily basis number of new cases, as well as the rolling average, the 7-day and the 14 days. Not only that, they also show number of infection among students, staff, and faculty. And this will indicate absenteeism among faculty and staff, which is another trigger, by the way, taken into consideration by the Minnesota recommendation. The following question is, why is the percent of confirmed cases among our campus population is an important figure to track? Because number one, we need to understand that campus population is calculated to be around 10,000 individual. This includes around 7,000 students, about 500 faculty, and around 2,000 staff members. It's a key trigger in the adopted recommendation, and the committee has made a recommendation to separate the new Cairo figures and dashboard from that of Tahrir campus for several reasons. I don't want to discuss this in this sitting. The last question is, why is the 3% is an important cutoff and trigger? We mentioned in the recommendation that if numbers exceed the rolling average over 14 days exceed 3%, this should lead to campus shutdown. Why is that? Number one, we need to understand that the 3% over 14-day rolling average is equivalent to 300 cases. based on the 10,000 campus population. If we divide this by 14, this will give me around 22 new cases per day, 22 new positive cases per day. The Minnesota Department of Health recommendation for the State of Higher Education to shut down campus if 14-day rolling average is greater than 3%. So it's again is part of the recommendation. I have just a final also piece of information which may help us to understand why did we select these 3%. There is no, of course, strong scientific evidence why 3% in particular, but usually we are concerned, not only are, you see all countries in many levels, there is a great deal of concern about what we call exponential transmission of the virus. What do we mean by this? If you look at the COVID-19 alert level, you can see that the stage of outbreak can range from 1 to 5. You can see that stage 4 transmission is high or rising exponentially. This means that number of cases may double within few days. And this is what we mean by exponential transmission of the virus. This is very serious. And this number of 3% is considered some sort of a cutoff that after this 3%, then transmission of the virus in the population will be exponential, and this will lead to doubling of number of cases in almost very few days, between 4 to 5 days, which now will result in a very serious situation, which we should lead to very strict measure to prevent transmission of the virus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Very, very informative and a lot to digest. I wonder if in some way the provost can make this mandatory reading in all the classrooms. But shy of that, I want to open the floor to questions from our attendees. You can submit in the chat or raise your hand if you want to talk. While we're waiting for that, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Hassan, something that I've noticed. I like to play around with numbers a lot. So currently, according to the latest information at the beginning of December, Egypt had fully vaccinated 16.5 million people, which accounts for just over 16% of the population. And at least one dose has been given to just over 27 million people, which is just shy of 27% of the national population. So total number of doses have been 43 million. However, I've gone back over the year, and I've noticed that in on December 8th, 2020, the daily cases were 434 as reported by the Ministry of Health, and the number of fatalities was 23. As of yesterday, the Ministry of Health, so this is like a year later, reported 889 cases and 51 fatalities. Now, that might seem like an alarming development, given the fact that almost half the population has gotten at least one dose of the vaccine. So could you tell us what reasons there might be behind this doubling over a year despite taking of vaccines? Thank you.
That's a very good question for us, and a very complicated one at the same time, and also very tricky one. So it's all in one. So I think I probably will not be able to answer the question, but I'd like to give some few remarks. I was discussing this while in Germany, by the way, with my colleagues, just a frank discussion. You know, how come we have in Europe now, in Germany, with all measures? I mean, no one on the street is, in the buses and public transportation indoors, is not wearing a face mask. Very strict. They applied something called the 3G rules, that person cannot enter a closed area without being vaccinated or test negative PCR test, or has been infected with COVID-19 and recovered and has an evidence of this. So this is 3G rule. And face mask everywhere. Despite all of this, we have over 55,000 new cases per day in Germany. At the same time, they told me that, oh, in Egypt, you have between around 900 cases and very small number of fatalities. What you guys are you doing there? Of course, one thing in Egypt, we are not doing enough testing. Testing is expensive and technically demanding. We are not doing enough testing. We only test it properly. Testing is limited to severe cases or for people who are traveling or something else. So only limited to a certain segments of the population with a specific criteria. And that's why we don't have large numbers. The same thing for fatality. But at the same time, we do not hear that ICU or intensive care unit beds are flooded and hospitals cannot accept more patients. So this is also indicate that level of transmission are not really high, and the severe disease is not really overwhelming our healthcare facilities. On the other hand, what's happening in between is really difficult to explain. With regard to increase in the number from year to year, and this could be due to the spread of the new variants, especially the Delta variant, which is a more serious variant. Omicron, so far, we know it transmits fast, but there is no really strong evidence that causes severe disease. And this may contribute to the increase in the numbers of that we are watching. I hope that by these comments, I try to more or less shed some light on the big question that you offered, Dr. Frost.
Okay, so we do have a question from Professor Kim Fox, who's asking, why are we responding like Titanic? I presume what she means is the Titanic, the response of the captain and his crew was a bit slow or a bit robotic. As to her question, how is the university responding? Why does it at times seem like we're behind the events and not ahead of them?
Okay, I think probably I have said this before, and maybe Dr. Rahab also mentioned this before. I will say in general, just general statements, probably not very specific answer to Dr. Kim Fox's question. Number one, AUC is probably one of the safest places in Cairo as we speak right now, due to the very high rate of vaccination and the comprehensive testing that we are offering. Number one, we offer diagnostic testing for all symptomatic cases. We are offering screening testing to all contacts of positive cases. We are offering surveillance testing for individuals who opt not to receive vaccination, either due to medical reason or due to wealth, which is crucial. So this is very comprehensive testing. Of course, we are not doing like other places where we tested the entire population of UC like once a month, like other institutions in the US can test the entire population once a month. When I was in Germany also, they have testing almost weekly and free testing all over the place, and they test all over. And testing is the first, of course, very important. But of course, due to limitation in available funds, as well as technical limitations and logistics, we cannot do that. However, we are doing all different types of testing, diagnostic, screening, and surveillance. Not as comprehensive, but we're still doing a good job in this. Again, vaccination, the school has done, the university has done a good job in this, and we have vaccinated the majority of our population. There is a slow trickling of data back to decision maker. And by the way, I just have to mention this out of experience in different countries. Again, I'm a scientific advisory committee. I don't belong to any administration office and so on. So the trickling back of data to decision making is a global problem. And this is actually, even scientists, if they want to really gauge the exact real-time transmission level of the virus, cannot be done because the still data is trickling backward. So actually they have to do some projection, other things in order to catch up. Just there are too many logistics issues and bottlenecks for how data are coming back. And actually we observe this in EUC. Sometimes a professor will complain to me, how come you are telling me my student should be absent 4 days ago? How come? Why don't you tell me today? You should be absent today for 10 days forward, not effective 4 days ago. Because by the time the student develops symptoms and go to testing and the testing turn out to be positive, then we have to start the quarantine period from the day of development of symptoms. But I cannot, not anyone will start developing cough or sore throat or blah, blah, blah. I give him the stamp of COVID-19. Could be just a flu, could be anything else. So by the time we have the test, which will give the confirmation and the stamp that this student or this person is COVID-19 positive, there are 4 days or 5 days lapse. Then we have to start from, and that's why there is, several complain about there is lagging of the data collected, and that's what's happening. But this is, by the way, this is globally. It's not only if we have a centralized healthcare system that is fully automated, then things will be different. But I think we're doing a good job with regard to everywhere else, and with regard to logistics and other limitations. I hope that I also, to the best of my ability, answer the question of Dr. Kim Fox.
There's some follow-up to what you just said. Manuel Schwab has actually asked 2 questions, and I will go with his follow-up question. If precise tracing, as you said, Dr. Hassan, reminds us, as you remind us, cannot be done, why do we keep claiming that we have such precise metrics of how well we're doing? Many in the community feel that our claims are out of proportion to the limits of our knowledge. What can we do to remedy that? And how would you respond, Manuel?
Tracing, okay. Let me take, I think we can improve tracing. I think there is a room definitely to improve tracing, and this will include in use of technology. And I think there is a room to improve tracing, definitely. Again, I don't want to just keep mentioning just my experience, my recent experience. Everywhere I went in Germany, I had to have an app on my cell phone called Luca. And everywhere I enter, I have to take the QR code of that place, restaurants, I mean, or other stores. And then if I go home and one person in that restaurant tests positive, the application will contact me immediately and tell me you have been in contact with a positive case, go and get tested. So I think we need to have, but this will be an IT issue, and we discussed this with IT, Dr. Imam Magahid, and so on before several times. There is a room for improvement for contact tracing, and this is important. This is important that we have a timely alert to people who have been in recent contact with positive cases. This is very important. I agree with this, but and there is and we have, and by the way, the committee has suggested several software packages and other things that have been submitted to the IT. But then the IT, I think they also still investigating this, of course, where the current capabilities of the IT infrastructure and so on.
So let me ask the provost about this. Some have said that the clinic might be overwhelmed with the amount of work that they are doing. Does the university have a plan to maybe increase the number of doctors, or increase the facilities, or increase the technology, as Dr. Hassan said, for the clinic to be able to rise up to the challenge of the constant reports and the constant investigation that is required? This is for the provost.
So thank you, Firas. Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for this very comprehensive view on COVID-19 and how to deal with it. But Dr. Firas, may I actually take that question to Bibi Shireen Shakir? The clinic is under her purview, and she's in a better position to answer that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Yes, of course, the clinic has had a huge load of work in the last few months doing all these activities together. We've recently added 2 doctors on service agreement contracts to basically deal with that temporary surge. We've also added a few administrative service agreement contracts so that we're not permanently increasing our hiring, but we know that in the coming 6 months, work is ramping up, and we have moved accordingly as well. I just want to say, yes, we're increasing a little bit our resource level, but the work is still there, and the pandemic is we're still in the middle. I don't see personally any dramatic wave down or like going down in terms of the curve yet. Hopefully we do soon, but there is a high workload. Not just the doctors most of the doctors are focusing on following up of the actual cases. Some of the doctors especially the new ones, are focusing on the systems work. The admin assistants are very helping on the admin work as well. So we are trying to keep up with the work, but the work is a lot, obviously. So I hope that answers the question.
It's somewhat.
Can we take also the last question from Manuel?
Just,
Zazi, at least.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one more point on the workload. And we're also working with Iman on some system automations that will help a little bit on the resource side. So we're also taking very active steps on that one. And that hopefully we're going to see the fruit of that at the start of next semester. We've introduced a good amount of automation in the system. So we're also working on the systems front to not only improve accuracy and the speed of alerting faculty and students of when there's a case, etc. It will help on the speed, but it will also help on the resources side. And again, no, I just want to go back to the question. We're not at all claiming that our systems are perfect. I just want to also, we are doing our best, and if we look back at the year and a half, we have evolved in terms of systems. Vaccination, our vaccination rate is excellent, is more than we expected to get on campus with an above 93% vaccination rate. That is very good. And again, the systems we've added module after module. So we're trying to keep up and be ahead of the curve, but in no way at all are we claiming that our tracing is 100% perfect or that our systems are 100% perfect. This claim is not even on the table. Thank you.
Okay, so Manuel is asking a follow-up question to that, and I think I'll direct this to Dr. Hassan. Until all these changes are put in place and so these new developments and these new technologies, how will we be protected until that's been done?
Okay, this is again very important, and as I mentioned in my slides in my presentation in several places, prevention of transmission is key. Forget about vaccine, forget about treatment, forget about this, all of this. Prevent transmission, protect yourself and loved ones from being or catching the virus. Face mask, social distance, religiously implemented. And don't allow a student to come closer to you for a meter and a half, but 1.5 meter, stop. Want to speak to you, he or she has to have a face mask, 1.5 meter distance. Try to remain as much as possible in open area. If they are indoor, open windows and doors, ventilation, face mask, social distance, ventilation if you are indoor, and frequent disinfection of hands. These are, very important measures that will reduce transmission and chances of catching the virus almost to minimal level. Till the system picks up speed and become improved and real time, all of this. If you apply these 4 simple rules, you'll be, chances of catching the virus is very low. And this is in our hands as members of this community to implement it and instruct others to do. No student should be in class without a face mask. No student should come closer to a faculty member within a certain distance. If a student comes to your office, keep the door open and possibly keep the window open. Or meet them in the conference room like what I do. My meetings now are in the conference room. Nobody comes usually to my office. Go to the conference room, we open the door and the window, and then we meet as much as you want. Don't take this lightly. Don't take this lightly. These are important because you will never know that regardless of the vaccination, regardless of the real-time reporting of data and positive cases and tracing, all of this, you do not want to catch the virus in order not to have to enter a monopoly with your health and your life. You don't want to do that. So transmission, prevention of transmission, and reduction of chances of the catching the virus should be number 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Yeah, yesterday I passed by a classroom and I saw nobody wearing a mask. It was closed. Windows were closed. I entered the classroom and I asked, where's the professor? The students were doing presentations. And I told the professor, can you please tell everyone to mask up, including yourself? And I think, yeah, we ought, even if that's intrusive, we ought to do that. Dr. Iman, you have your hand up. And so we'll end on your note.
I just want to add a few issues regarding contact tracing as well as systems. There are two main pressing problems that the scientific committee and our task force has identified, which is class lists and how we communicate this in a faster measure. And this has been automated, which is linking the two systems, including Banner, and it's currently in the testing phase. We don't want to disrupt operations, but we're testing it, and it's going to go live because it's going to actually close access to campus almost immediately on bulk. So it's in testing with MNO. That's one thing. The other thing, with regards to contact tracing, the scientific committee thankfully sent us a lot of links. We looked at them, we compared them all, and most of them require high adoption rates or enforcement that is not always available or possible on our end. I think our operation runs very similar to what Harvard has, which is Wi-Fi tracing, and we hardly have the resources they do, but actually we're using the same technology. So again, we're open. We're always going to research what's new, but we need the community, as Dr. Azizi said. It goes back to the community again to help us be a safer community. So if the student does report, if goes to the clinic, I think they have to be responsible citizens ultimately.
Thank you, Dr. Iman. This concludes our campus conversation for today. I'm sure many of you wish we could continue this, and I hope that we can plan some in the future. Definitely, we will be having more of these in the spring semester. I want to thank Kim and Manuel for their very good questions, and I want to thank the distinguished panelists for their responses and all the work that they're doing. And I hope that you can all stay safe and continue to wear your masks. I will, as soon as I leave this room. It's a huge conference room. I'm the only person here, and I've got my alcohol. So please stay safe and healthy, and thank you so much for joining us today.